Louisiana Real Estate Exam Part 3 2025, 100 questions with explained answers. Question 1. A contract that does not have all the necessary elements, capacity, assent, consideration, legal purpose, is valid, void, enforceable by insinuation, legally binding. A void contract has no legal force or effect from the beginning because it lacks a required legal element. It is as if the contract never existed. A voidable contract, on the other hand, is valid but can be cancelled by one of the parties, like a minor or someone under duress. Question 2. A contract calls for $1,000 in monetary damages if the agreement is breached. This $1,000 is a retainer fee, a breach fine, liquidated damages, lease pendens. Liquidated damages are a pre-agreed sum of money specified in a contract that will be paid to the non-breaching party if a default occurs. In real estate, the earnest money deposit is most commonly used as the liquidated damages for the seller if the buyer defaults. Question 3. When the terms of a contract are in the process of being completed, prior to closing, the contract is executed, amended, rescinded, executory. An executory contract is in progress. Both parties have signed and are working toward the finish line, closing. Once all terms are met and the deed is delivered at the closing table, the contract becomes executed. Question 4. Two more offers are submitted while a buyer is waiting to present their offer. What is the agent's duty? Only one offer at a time. Present alongside other offers. Wait for first priority. Present the first one known. Under the laws of agency, a listing broker must present all written offers to the seller as soon as possible. The agent cannot filter or rank them by time. They must present them together so the seller can make a fair and informed choice between the competing bids. Question 5. A seller had termite treatment 6 months ago but says there is no current infestation. What should the agent do? Omit it, outdated. Advise seller not to mention it. Recommend disclosing treatment. Tell buyers only if they ask. Integrity in disclosure is vital. Even if the termites are gone, the fact that the house was treated is a material piece of history for many buyers. Disclosing past treatments protects the seller from future claims that they hid structural risks or infestations. Question 6. A broker tells an agent to skip disclosing a minor mold problem. What should the agent do? Follow broker's instructions. Disclose the mold to all parties. Remain silent to avoid conflict. Disclose only after closing. Agents have a legal duty to disclose known material defects, issues that affect value or health, to all parties. This duty overrides the instructions of the broker or the seller. Ignoring mold is a violation of licensing law and can lead to personal liability for the agent. Question 7. A buyer's agent shows a home listed by a different firm. The buyer asks how much to offer. The agent can contact the seller directly, provide a CMA and offer advice, withhold all opinion, call the listing agent for instructions. A buyer's agent represents the buyer's interests, not the seller's. They are legally allowed and expected to provide professional guidance, such as preparing a comparative market analysis, CMA, to help the buyer formulate a competitive and fair offer price. Question 8. A buyer offers to pay in full for a home using cryptocurrency. What must both parties ensure? Wallet is secure. Title company accepts crypto. Agent is paid in cash. Loan contingency is in effect. While cryptocurrency is a legal form of consideration, many title and escrow companies are not yet set up to handle digital wallet transfers. Before signing a contract, the parties must confirm that the closing entity is willing and able to facilitate the exchange of crypto for a deed. Question 9. A property management contract should include all of the following except signatures of owner/licensee, duration of agreement, signature of the tenant, management fee. A property management agreement is an employment contract between the owner and the brokerage. The tenant is not a party to this agreement, they sign a separate lease agreement with the landlord, or the manager acting for the landlord. Question 10. What are 3 common ways to voluntarily transfer title to a property? Sales contract, will, lien. Will, grant, deed. Title certificate, escheat, deed. Grant, lien, will. Voluntary alienation, transfer, of title occurs when an owner chooses to give up their property. This is typically done through a deed, sale or gift, a grant, government to private, or a will, transfer after death. Question 11. When someone passes away with a valid will in place, it is referred to as dying. Testate, intestate, escheat, appurtenant. Dying testate means the deceased person left a clear road map, a will, for how their assets should be distributed. Intestate means they died without a will, leaving the state's laws of descent to decide who inherits the property. Question 12. What does the term escheat refer to in real estate? Transfer through a trust, transfer through quitclaim, reversion to the government, distribution to heirs. Escheat is the state's power to take ownership of property when an owner dies without a will and has no legal heirs. This ensures the land remains in the public domain and under clear ownership rather than becoming abandoned. Question 13. Liens on a title can be voluntary or involuntary. Which is an example of a voluntary lien? Mortgage, judgment, child support lien, tax lien. A mortgage is a voluntary lien because the owner chooses to pledge their property as collateral in exchange for a loan. Judgments and tax liens are involuntary because they are placed against the property by a court or the government without the owner's consent. Question 14. An easement to cross neighbor Donnie's land is on Paul's title. This is an example of aslation, encroachment, estoppel, encumbrance, equitable title. An encumbrance is any burden or limitation on a property's title. While it doesn't stop the property from being sold, it can affect the value or use of the land. Common encumbrances include liens, easements, and deed restrictions. Question 15. Which legal instrument is used by an escrow agent to transfer real property at closing? Title certificate, deed, bill of sale, settlement statement. While many documents are signed at closing, the deed is the only one that actually conveys transfers, the legal title from the grantor, seller, to the grantee, buyer. It must be delivered and accepted to be effective. Question 16. What type of deed provides the most protection for the property owner? Quitclaim deed, sheriff's deed, warranty deed, beneficiary deed. A general warranty deed is the gold standard. It includes 5 covenants or promises from the seller, including the promise that the title is clear and that the seller will defend the buyer's ownership against all future claims. Question 17. On closing day, who is legally required to sign the deed to transfer the property? The buyer, the seller, both buyer and seller, the seller and escrow agent. To transfer property, only the grantor, the seller, is required to execute, sign, the deed. The grantee, the buyer, does not usually sign the deed, though they must accept it for the transfer of title to be legally complete. Question 18. When agents get together to set a fixed commission rate for their area, they violate which act? Homestead Act, Fair Housing Act, Ada Act, Sherman Antitrust Act. The Sherman Antitrust Act prohibits price fixing. Real estate commissions must always be negotiable between the broker and the client. Any agreement between competing firms to set a standard rate is a federal crime. Question 19. What duty requires an agent to place the client's best interest above all others? Honesty, loyalty, respect, obedience. The duty of loyalty is a primary fiduciary obligation. It means the agent must put the client's interests, like getting the best price, above their own interests, like getting a quick commission check, or the interests of any third party. Question 20. A seller tells an agent the basement leaks only when it rains hard. Is the agent required to disclose this? No. Be obedient to seller. Trust client's judgment. Agent cannot withhold material facts. Only mention if buyer asks. A basement leak is a material fact regarding the property's physical condition. Even if the seller says it is no big deal, an agent is legally and ethically bound to disclose it to all prospective buyers. This overrides the duty of obedience. Question 21. If an agent is accused of puffing, they are being accused of fraud, lying, misrepresentation, exaggeration. Puffing is the use of superlative or exaggerated statements of opinion, the most beautiful kitchen in the world. While it is generally legal because it is recognized as sales talk rather than fact, it should be used carefully to avoid being mistaken for misrepresentation. Question 22. Describing a desired type of buyer in an advertisement would be considered descriptive advertising, discriminatory, target marketing, effective advertising. The Fair Housing Act requires agents to describe the property, example, 3-bedroom house with a pool, not the people, example, perfect for a young Christian couple. Describing the buyer is illegal because it implies a preference or exclusion of protected classes. Question 23. An agent represents both parties in a deal without written permission. This creates single agency, dual agency, specific agency, undisclosed dual agency. In many states, dual agency is legal only if both the buyer and seller give their informed consent in writing. If an agent acts for both sides without this formal permission, it is undisclosed dual agency, which is illegal and grounds for losing a license. Question 24. Under 2024 rules, how are buyer-agent fees negotiated? Fixed and non-negotiable. Standard 3% commission. Negotiable and agreed in writing. Sellers cannot contribute. Recent changes in real estate industry rules have emphasized that buyer agency fees are fully negotiable. Buyers must now sign a written agreement with their agent that clearly states exactly how much the agent will be paid before they even tour a property. Question 25. Davis is a subagent of listing agent Luke. Who does Davis work for? The buyer, the seller, buyer and seller, Luke only. A subagent is someone who helps the listing agent. Under traditional agency law, any agent helping the listing agent also owes their fiduciary duties to the seller. This is why buyers' agency agreements are now more common, to ensure the buyer has their own representative. Question 26. Only showing homes in a certain part of town based on a buyer's nationality is called panic selling, redlining, blockbusting, steering. Steering is the illegal practice of guiding or steering buyers toward or away from specific neighborhoods based on their race, religion, or national origin. This limits the buyer's choice and violates the core principles of the Fair Housing Act. Question 27. A landlord tells a Hispanic man a unit is rented, then tells a white man it is available. This is race discrimination, familial status discrimination, income discrimination, religious discrimination. This is a classic and illegal example of disparate treatment based on race. Under the Fair Housing Act, a landlord cannot lie about the availability of a unit or change the terms of a rental based on the protected class of the applicant. Question 28. What must a broker ensure before advertising a coming soon listing? Agent paid in advance. Seller verbally agrees. Allowed by MLS and agreed in writing. MLS doesn't find out. Many multiple listing services, MLS, have strict rules for coming soon listings. To stay compliant, a broker must have a signed listing agreement and specific written authorization from the seller to delay the property's entry into the active market. Question 29. Can a buyer still cancel an as-is contract based on an inspection? No, waived all rights. Only if seller agrees. Yes, if there is an inspection contingency. No, unless financing falls through. As is means the seller won't pay for repairs, but it does not automatically take away the buyer's right to inspect. If the contract contains an inspection contingency, the buyer can still walk away and keep their deposit if they don't like what the inspector finds. Question 30. A buyer loses their job just before closing. What is the first thing they should do? Proceed as planned. Notify the lender immediately. Tell lender after closing. Only tell the agent. Mortgage approval is based on current employment and income. Failing to notify the lender of a job loss is a form of mortgage fraud. The lender will likely perform a final verbal verification of employment right before closing and discover the change anyway. Question 31. A seller wants to reject all investor offers to protect the neighborhood. An agent should follow instructions. Inform seller this is likely illegal. Quietly avoid investors. Screen for owner-occupants. While investor isn't a federally protected class, refusing to sell to a specific group can sometimes overlap with illegal steering or discrimination against protected classes. An agent must educate the seller on fair housing laws and avoid participating in discriminatory behavior. Question 32. A buyer asks if a neighborhood is mostly Christian. The agent should respond, yes, it is. Let's look at the data together. I can't answer that. Check census data. I'm not sure. Ask the neighbors. Licensees must avoid providing demographic or religious information about a neighborhood. Doing so can be seen as steering. The safest and most professional response is to refer the buyer to objective, third-party sources like the U.S. Census or local police statistics. Question 33. What is the best advice for a buyer who wants a sale contingent offer but hasn't listed their home? Make a non-contingent offer. Sign a listing agreement first. Explain the offer is weak without a listing. Tell them it is a waste of time. A seller is very unlikely to accept an offer that depends on the sale of a house that isn't even for sale yet. A good agent will explain the risk to the seller and advise the buyer that their offer will be much stronger once their own home is officially on the market. Question 34. Home sold for $525,000. Rate is 5% split 50/50ths with co-broker. Agent gets 60% of her broker's share. Payout is $13,125, $7,875, $7,578, $15,750. Calculation: $525,000 asterisk 0.05 equals $26,250. Total com. $26,250/2 equals $13,125. Office share. $13,125 asterisk 0.60 equals $7,875. Agent Amanda's payout. This is a standard split calculation used in real estate math. Question 35. A $7,500 roof has a 30-year life. Using straight-line depreciation, what is the value after 5 years? $1,250, $5,500, $6,250, $1,500. Calculation: $7,500/30 years equals $250 loss per year. $250 asterisk 5 years equals $1,250 total depreciation. $7,500, original cost, $1,250, depreciation, equals $6,250 current value. Question 36. What must a broker do next after receiving earnest money from a buyer? Deposit in personal account. Keep in a secure safe. Deposit in an escrow account. Deposit in operating account. Escrow funds are other people's money. To prevent commingling, state laws require brokers to place these funds in a neutral, designated trust or escrow account within a specific time frame, usually 3 business days. Question 37. Contract is $250,000. Loan is $225,000. Appraisal is $255,000. What is the loan-to-value, LTV, ratio? 98%, 88%, 92%, 90%. Calculation: $225,000, loan, $250,000, price, equals 0.90 or 90%. Asterisk note asterisk lenders use the lower of the price or the appraisal. Since the price was lower, $250,000, the appraisal is irrelevant for the LTV calculation. Question 38. Closing is April 10th, 100 days. Taxes are $1,300. Seller owns closing day. Seller's share is $356, $352, $359, $469. Calculation: $1,300 / 365 days equals $3.56 per day. 100 days, Jan APR 10, asterisk $3.56 equals $356. Since taxes are paid in arrears at the end of the year, the seller must credit the buyer for the portion of the year they lived in the house. Question 39. How many acres are in a lot that measures 250 feet by 325 feet? 1.66, 1.52, 1.86, 1.89. Calculation: 250 * 325 equals 81,250 total square feet. 81,250 / 43,560 SQ feet in 1 acre equals 1.86 acres. Remembering the number 43,560 is essential for almost all real estate land math. Question 40. Loan is $100,000 at 6% interest. Payment is $800. How much of the first payment goes to principal? $600, $300, $500, $800. Calculation: $100,000 * 0.06 equals $6,000, annual interest. $6,000 / 12 months equals $500, first month's interest. $800, total payment, $500, interest, equals $300, applied to the principal balance.